Cracking the Cash Flow Code. My guest today is Tom Kirkham, and Tom is the CEO, founder, and I'm going to bet owner of Kirkham Iron Tech. They're a cybersecurity firm. So, guess what we're going to talk about today? Yep, you're right, cybersecurity. So, let's bring Tom on and we'll start the conversation. Hey, Tom, how are you today?
I'm doing good, Josh. How about yourself?
I'm doing well, thank you. So I have one of the dumbest questions you're probably ever going to hear. Are you ready for this?
I've heard a lot. Go ahead.
Okay. Why should we care about cybersecurity?
Oh, it's interesting you bring that up. Even those of us in the infosec community, and that's what we call it inside the community, it's information security. But in the cybersecurity, even experts do not understand nor appreciate the sheer size and scale of criminal hacking. It is a huge, huge global business. There was a team, a couple of masterminds put together a ransomware attack about 3 or 4 years ago that grossed $3.5 billion worldwide in one single team. Two people masterminded it and grossed 3.5 billion with a B. And we are each and every one of us are literally under attack every minute of the day. But most people are unaware of it because of all the protections that are put in place, whether it's on your local area network, whether it's through your internet service provider, or it's through the efforts of organizations like the FBI or CISA is another big organization that's involved with that. And there's just hundreds and hundreds of different ways to hack into companies.
So, Tom, let's talk about phishing for a second, because I actually think, at least in my experience, that is a huge problem. And the people doing that seem to be getting a little more sophisticated about how they're going about it. Can you give us some advice about what we should do? Now, first of all, where are people mostly phishing? What is phishing, and what can we do to stop it?
Well, what you have to remember, I'm going to back this up with a little bit of statistics. 95% of all successful hacks is a result of human failure inside the victim organization. 95%. The majority of those are through phishing or phishing emails. They email you and they use psychological manipulation or what is it, social engineering, these fancy words for a con job. They get the prospective victim or the receiver of that email, they get them to let the hacker into their computer network. Now, the majority of phishing attacks like that, well, I don't know if it's the majority. There's a lot of different ways to use phishing emails, but one of the biggest ways is to distribute ransomware attacks. Now, what most people think of when it comes to hacking is it only happens to the big guys, right? It's only a Colonial Pipeline, it's only a JBS Meat Supply or Sony Pictures corporations. Well, those are targeted attacks, but the sheer scale and volume of the industry is concentrated around small to medium sized businesses. And phishing is the best way right now to distribute ransomware attacks. And so they're talking in terms of volume and scale. So they'll send out 100,000, a million of these emails. And the hackers think in terms of conversion rates. They don't know who their victims are, nor do they even care who their victims are. They don't care if they're a two-person law firm or 100-person manufacturing concern or a 1,000-person manufacturing concern. All they're looking at is the conversion rate. So if they convert 1% of those 100,000 emails and collect an average of $10,000 per victim, that's a $10 million payday.
Yeah, it would seem to me, well, maybe 1% is not high, but where I'm finding phishing attacks more often is through text messages and Facebook, believe it or not. Uh, So can you talk about those? Because the standard things. It's you get the emails. You've got you know we get some of that, but frankly, we get a lot more stuff coming in through Facebook and text messaging.
Well, yeah, it's just a matter of media choices and what's more effective for the list that they have and what they're trying to accomplish, right? So maybe they're just trying to get credentials for someone's Facebook account, right? We all know somebody that says, please ignore any messages from me. My Facebook credentials have been hacked or been compromised. And what we know, once again, statistically, is 90% of the people out there reuse passwords. 90%, even though 60% of those know they shouldn't. And so once they steal credentials to Facebook or their Gmail account or their bank account, they generally have access to all the other things that they've used the same credentials in. So it really gets into the specialty of the hacker. There's hackers that specialize in exploiting server backdoors. There's hackers that specialize in exploiting unpatched servers or unpatched personal machines, personal laptops, personal desktops, phones. There's so many different specialties in this interest in this industry that it's sort of. I like to use the analogy of the medical community, right? I mean, there are neurologists and neurosurgeons. Now, if you've never, hopefully, you haven't had the unpleasant uh, experience of having to actually understand those two roles in that whole part of neurology, of which there's many other specialists. But there's a big difference between neurologists and neurosurgeons. Well, it's the same way in the hacker community. And it's also the same way on the good guy side as well. So, our company specializes in preventing attacks. We're obviously not law enforcement, and we generally only do incident response for our own clients. We're very reluctant to bring somebody in and do incident response if they're not already a client, because we're just not built that way.
Right.
We specialize in defensive countermeasures.
So if somebody is concerned about cyber attacks, what are a couple of things that they should be doing first?
Well, the first thing is to quit reusing passwords. And while we're on this topic, every single person needs to be concerned about attacks. It has nothing to do with the size of your business. We deal with some high net worth individuals that typically have family businesses that may only be 3 or 4 people in there, but they deal in hundreds of millions of dollars. And they're typically unstructured, or maybe you're retired, and it's just everyone needs to worry about it. You can be scammed thousands of different ways.
Mm-hmm.
The first thing to do is to quit reusing passwords. Get a
Okay.
password manager. Password manager will generate random long passwords like 20 characters or more, numbers, letters, upper, lowercase, special characters. A password manager will not only automatically create that password for every single website uniquely, but a password manager also means you don't have to remember passwords anymore. It will automatically fill in the passwords on any login that you need.
You have to remember one password.
You do have to remember that, and you never use it anywhere else.
Yes.
And sometimes especially when I'm doing educational webinars for attorneys, uh, the attorneys say, well, that's a single point of failure. And yes, it is, but it's super critical that that password is really, really good, but it's still best practices today. We're not quite yet to a password-less society.
Although Apple's trying to get us there pretty fast if they have it right.
Yeah, other companies have been working on it for about 20 years. So,
Yeah.
but right now, as we're doing this today, password managers are still best practices.
Okay, so let me ask you a question. I have like 600 and maybe 700 different passwords I've accumulated over the years.
Mhm.
Most of those passwords are for places I never use anymore. And um, I'm sure not going to go through 600 websites to take myself out of there because that would be a stupidly time. How much of a danger am I in? Because those old sites I never go to anymore are using passwords that I used to use all the time, don't use anymore. All my what I would call important sites have got 20 character passwords or more, all using a password manager. What kind of risk am I in?
You're in the same risk I am because I've been using a password manager for 30 years, give or take. And I've got like 2,000, sets of credentials in my password manager. And the good thing about it is it goes through a good password manager will go through and say this site's been compromised. Now it's up to me to decide, am I going to go through the effort? And out of those 2,000, I'm thinking it may be, depending on the password manager, because I use a lot of different ones for experimentation and things like that. But uh, that's a low, it's 60 to 80 have shown that they've been password. It's an old Yahoo email account that I don't use
Right.
anymore. And it's your own personal risk analysis, right? If it was for an old AOL account from 30 years ago, it's not your primary means of communication. You're no longer reusing that password anymore. How much information can they get from that particular service provider where they could actually do more damage to you? You
Mm-hmm.
want to look at your current healthcare, financial systems, of course, all your social media accounts. You've got to make sure that, that security is not job one with social media, nor is it
No.
apparently with Yahoo or AOL because they've both been breached many, many times. You've got to get a good password manager and run it through their threat detection level and look at the sites that it says have been compromised and do your own risk analysis. And that is the first step in cybersecurity defense is you've got to do a risk assessment. You got to see where you are.
So, what is the three or four um, password managers someone might want to consider?
Well, we are a partner with a company called Keeper, and it's spelled just like it sounds. It's keeper.com. We really like Keeper. I'm also a big fan of 1Password. That's the number one password, 1Password.com. Those are my two favorites. There's others out there that I simply haven't evaluated, but they're very promising. I will say this for those of you that are still using LastPass, you need to change. And I know it's painful to change, but LastPass had some serious problems last year. We still don't understand the extent of it, but bottom line is the hackers got into their source code. They didn't theoretically they haven't cracked anyone's passwords because if you crack LastPass itself, the database, you can't get the passwords. It's encrypted before it leaves your device, right?
Mm-hmm.
They can't even get to your passwords. But the fact that they've tampered with the source code or they've potentially tampered with the source code and we still don't understand all the details on it, we're recommending everybody switch off of LastPass.
Yeah, I actually transferred from LastPass to 1Password 3, 4 years ago, I think, and it wasn't a problem. It was really easy. It was almost seamless. I mean, it just went boom right in there. Read the database and we were up and running. And frankly, I'm very happy with 1Pass. It's easy to use and works on all my devices.
Yeah, I really am a big 1Password fan. So
Yeah.
that's a great choice, and you did it at just the right time. So we went through the same thing. I used LastPass for 20 some odd years,
Yeah.
and I started seeing things that led me to believe their source code. Believe it or not, their source code control was sloppy. And I'm thinking like, well, if they're reintroducing bugs that should have been trapped, what else are they doing wrong? So we
Yeah.
switched everybody off of LastPass about that same time frame.
Yeah. So, Tom, let's talk about your business for a little while because that's what I'd like to do here. I see that your biggest challenge is hitting aggressive revenue growth goals. Can I ask what you're doing to get there?
Oh well, most of the companies, most of our peers in this industry, uh, they don't scale very large. And more recently, in the last 4 or 5 years, we made an initiative to really scale up and really get large. You know, there's a lot of merger and acquisition activity in this industry,
Now,
and
are you in the MSP industry or are you in a different industry?
well,
The
we are an
managed services?
MS, right? Yeah, so it's a managed security service provider,
Okay,
and then there's a managed services provider. So
right.
MSP is IT management,
Yep,
outsourced IT management for the most part, and MSSP is security. You're outsourcing your security.
right.
And so uh, uh, around 8 years ago, 7 or 8 years ago, we made it a priority to go security first, right?
Okay,
So in order to be a client of ours, we have minimal security requirements, or else you can't be a client.
right.
And some managed IT companies until this day don't have minimum security requirements,
Yep,
because you have to understand that our clients are a threat vector to us, and they're also a threat vector to all of our other clients.
sure.
So we have those minimum standards. So we're security is job one first, and then it's all about delivering the return on investment of your IT infrastructure. So,
So,
and then about, what has it been, 7 years or 8 years now ago now, I kind of got more passionate about it when I discovered I was on an ISIS kill list because of a data breach. And that really drove us to be even more aware of the seriousness of cybersecurity.
so, um, how do you go about scaling your business? How do you find new clients?
We have both an outbound marketing sales organization that
Mm-hmm.
targets particular profiles of prospects or suspects, however you want to phrase that.
I
And
hate
then we
that
have
term
inbound
suspect, by the
initiatives.
way.
Is what?
I hate the term suspect. I hate it.
Well, everybody has their own definition, right? So
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, I'm not real fond of it, but I haven't found a good suitable substitute for it. But it's about you want to do all the right things with your existing clients. Make sure their experience is great. You exceed their expectations. You make sure they don't have a breach. Right. That's security is the first thing. Um, but we also have our own internal inbound marketing, to
Mm-hmm.
where we're utilizing, keeping an eye on the media, the message, the moment, and just creating mind share, doing different various parts of different media types, whether it's social media, whether it's emails, whether it's direct mail, whatever that media is, and targeting certain verticals that we have very good success at and have a lot of market penetration in, such as manufacturing, law firms, accounting, things like that. And it's about building that scale up in all aspects of the company, if that answers your question.
Well, sort of. I got a couple of questions. How many people are in your sales team?
Well, not counting the outsourced company, there's two.
Two.
We're a small company.
Okay. And let me ask, this is a question I ask almost every business owner, and I'll see if you're one of the unusual ones that can actually answer it.
Okay.
What's the problem you solve for your customers?
Well, that's a good question. What's the problem we solve is hopefully protecting them from going out of business. 40 to 60% of the businesses that have a successful cyber attack go out of business within 2 years.
Okay, so
So depends on the
that's
research
actually
report.
that's actually a pretty good answer to that. So how can
well,
no, I'm
well,
serious.
now
Doc, I'm
now I
serious about this. Is that
do what?
most people in the world of business, you ask them what's the problem they solve, they talk about the stuff they do. So when you say you keep me from going out of business, that might be a problem that I want to have solved.
Right. Or fines. If you're subject to HIPAA regulations,
Yep.
financial regulations, IRS regulations, there could be so much fallout from a breach. But I one of the things that I really started concentrating on recently is getting our clients to maximize their return on investment for the IT side of it. You know, there's a reason why they're spending money on servers and switches and routers and all this IT infrastructure, and a lot of people, many people look at it as an expense. And if it's done properly and you know your industry's benchmarks and you're underspending compared to your peers, then you're probably not maximizing your return on your IT investment as well. So, on either side of the house, our job is to make them more productive, more efficient, protect them from fines, and make sure they're compliant with regulations, and of course, ultimately, to make sure they don't go out of business.
You just brought up I have a question for you, and then I'm going to go back to my. Actually, I'm going to do my comment, then ask my question. The thing that I find really interesting is that you have several problems that you solve. So I'm going to give you some free advice. When you talk to a potential customer, only talk about one. Because I have the same thing. Like I can help people transition their business. I can help bring in second generations. I can help you create excess cash in your business. I can help you reach financial freedom, but I can't talk about, and I can help you hire the right people. I can help you get more efficient in what you do, but I cannot talk about all those at one time because, or even two at one time, because if I do, I've confused you. And once I've confused you, I've lost you as a potential customer.
Right. Yeah, that's great advice. That's
Yeah, so
great
that's why
advice.
that's been something I've learned the hard way over the years. In fact, I'm writing about that right now for a newsletter in a few weeks. So my question for you, and then we're going to have to stop here, unfortunately. Um, I have this debate going on a lot of times with my clients of should they move everything they have to the cloud or should they continue using servers in their office? And I know you're going to probably say it depends, but why don't you give us just a general answer, for that you might want to think about?
Yeah, yeah, it depends. Okay, here's what you need to know. It, it, every some people, if your service, if you've moved to a cloud service provider, and they tell you you don't have to worry about security because it's on Microsoft or it's on Amazon AWS or whatever Google's is, you need to run, because those infrastructures in and of themselves are super, super secure. But the moment they add software, whether it's QuickBooks or it's some vertical market application or line of business application that you use, it has all the same vulnerabilities or many of the same vulnerabilities as it would if it was on premises. So it it really does depend, and I would rather drive that decision from what is the most productive investment, and then look at the security ramifications on it and see if there's a showstopper. So
I can tell you that at least with small businesses, the most productive investment is in the cloud. It is not having servers in your office. Huge expense, and from where I sit, I don't see any real value there. You still have to do, I mean, in fact, protecting the servers in your office seems to be more complicated than protecting your software on the in the cloud.
well, that's assuming the service provider is protecting it. I have a friend that owns a pretty good sized insurance company that went totally virtual, desktops and everything. And he was told, don't worry about it because it's all on AWS. And lo and behold, they get a ransomware attack, and 50 different clients of the service provider got shut down.
Yeah.
As far as the infrastructure costs, now that gets into maybe your line of business application hasn't fully migrated to the cloud. You may have no choice but to use an on
Well,
prem
that's
system.
a good read. But what I'm seeing now is that most companies have stopped their development on servers and all their development efforts in the cloud.
Right. But don't forget password safety, their
Oh, all that
own
stuff. All that stuff is absolutely 100% true. You're speaking to the choir here. Uh, when I did own I just transferred ownership of my companies first of the year, but when I did own them, I was a bearer about long passwords that were changed on a regular basis. And we actually had a cybersecurity um, consulting group that looked over our shoulders.
Yeah. That's a great way to start is find a consultant because
Yeah.
this is a huge industry. You can't learn all of this yourself. I
No,
mean,
no, nor do you want to unless you like this stuff. So
I
Tom,
want my lawyer to do lawyerly things,
right,
not
right,
worry about security, training his
right.
people on security. So
So Tom, unfortunately, we are out of time. In fact, we're past out of time. And I'm going to bet folks are going to be interested in finding you. So if they wanted to, how would they go about doing that?
the best way to start is to go to our website, kirkhamirontech.com. I assume those will be in the show notes. But Kirkham is spelled Kirkham, irontech.com.
Cool. And how would they find you if they want to talk to you?
Now, the simplest way to reach me is Tom at tomkirkham.com.
Cool. And I've got only one thing for you to do today because I need to change some other stuff around. But please go to wherever you're listening to this podcast and give us an honest rating and review. If you love us, you can give us 5 stars. If you hate us, you can give us 1 star, and I'll just cry a little bit. But those reviews are really important for us because it helps people find the show. And most folks that come to our show, we have these great episodes like folks like Tom who give you really high quality information. And don't you want to share that with your friends? So go and give us a review. So this is Josh Patrick with Tom Kirkham. You're at Cracking the Cash Flow Code. Thanks a lot for stopping by. I hope to see you back here really soon.